All right.
Yep.
So, Emile, as we wrap up our show, two big questions for you down the stretch here. I
Yeah.
gave my grade yesterday on the YouTube video, and I gave Alemany an A for all the work that had to be done, all the balancing and registering and salary reductions and not mortgaging the future, the long term. So
Yeah.
you could either give it 1 to 10, spice it up a little bit, or you could give your A to F using the Americanized system here for grades.
Sure.
So yeah, how would you, big picture, what was the final verdict on this transfer window for Alemany?
I mean, I think it's along the lines of what you were saying, and what we just discussed a little bit ago. Given the constraints under that were in place when he joined, when he came back, when he came to the club, and the constraints that continue to be in place, and the wage bill that he was given. I mean, I think you have to give him. I mean, I'll allow that maybe there was something else out there, but I mean, I would give like a 9 out of 10, and just the Griezmann deal was obviously already done, but in this period, to get Coutinho's wages off the wage bill, at the very least for half a season, but potentially, if he once again takes to life in England and Villa see him as being worth 40 million, you have, I mean, really wiggled out of something there. And I think the situation with Dembele, I mean, I think it's sort of it is, it simply is. So I think he did what could have been done there, and to bring in, three. I mean, I guess if we're talking Torres from the kind of the beginning of this window's activity, to bring in three sort of different but dynamic and very talented. In the case of Torres and Aubameyang, pretty prolific goal scoring types. When that's what this club needed. I mean, I think he's done a phenomenal bit of business, and the fact that they've all been able, or all been willing to play on reduced wages to effectively facilitate Barcelona's assembly of this squad. I mean, I think it's it's a 9 out of 10. It's an A. I don't know what more reasonably we could have asked of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reminder too, comes almost simultaneously with the day that the club comes out with that third-party forensic investigation into the club's finances during the Bartomeu regime. Just, I mean, unbelievable stuff. Made unjustified payments to journalists and lawyers, as well as paying commission of over 30% to some agents when the industry standard is around 5%. I mean, this report coming out perfectly aligns. It makes it incredible that Barca were able to get anything done. A reminder that as bad as things are, doesn't mean things get better. And the fact that Alemany was able to do all the moves he did, again, it took a lot of concessions from players, from Dani Alves, basically coming for free, from Ferran Torres and Adama Traore and Aubameyang, all taking those huge salary reductions just to arrive and play for Barcelona. It tells you the power that the badge still has. And while it may not be the same right now as the Premier League money, and unfortunate for us to admit, it may not be the same as what the Real Madrid project is. It may not financially be what Real Madrid is going to be able to offer right now and over the summertime. So, yeah, I mean, there's still these circumstances over the summer where Barca miss out on, quote unquote, a big fish, or they don't get Haaland, and Haaland and Mbappe both go to Real Madrid. All those things are very still possible, but financially, whether it's the naming rights and it's basically getting that Espai Barca project renewed, that was another part of even this January transfer window, trying to figure out where their money is going to go. I mean, and then again, all on the back of the corruption that occurred in the Bartomeu regime. And if this club is able to financially basically get out of that hole, if you will, now the debt is a long time, that 15-year loan from Goldman Sachs and all that stuff. I mean, the club had to pay off, what was it, 471 million, don't quote me on that, euro of short-term debt, or what was it? No, it was 700 something, whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, that can needed to be kicked down the road, and you couldn't even... before you could even think about long-term planning and things like that, you simply needed to be financially viable, and out from underneath that, at least in the short term.
Well, let me get it. Yeah, it was 731 million in short-term debts from 3 year transfers. right? And 1.35 billion in total debt. It was a 481 million euro loss. So for the club to sign Ferran Torres and actually have it be above board, right? Because I think you're going to still see the trolls and the internet and everybody asking, how can Barcelona afford players? How are they doing everything? I thought they were bankrupt. I thought they were done, but they're not. And for everything to be basically above board now, and for everybody to be able to, I mean, for again, third parties and the Swiss football brand to be able to count the Euros one by one, and for Alba to be able to play in that parameters of in the very tight league constraints and work with that, 25% on because they could not reach their 97 million euro salary limit, which was reduced by over 300 million euros. I know I threw a lot of numbers at you right there, but for the club to be able to, and Alemany to be able to tiptoe all of that, and whether, I mean, you're even looking at the margins. They were able to get Aubameyang, if he is registered, they're getting him registered by under 2 million euros. That's basically a little less of what they had to play with, which seems like a lot, but it's not in terms of actually on those kind of salary numbers and whatever, getting these contracts under the ledger. But yeah, so it's incredible that the position the club was in, and he was still able to get all this business done. And I think Ferran Torres is the one that does stick out to me, to say they got a guy that could be at the Camp Nou for like 10 years. He's one of the best young Spanish talents in the world. And to be able to bring him in shows that this club it has the ability to sell young players on this project. And if that project, in theory, will only improve. And that's why I'm so optimistic, because we keep saying what's rock bottom. Not finishing top four will be rock bottom.
Yes.
Okay? But if they finish top four, then we've already hit rock bottom. Then summertime was rock bottom with Messi. Then January, this doesn't feel as bad as Messi, I'll tell you that. So step up from that. And then top four, if they're able to secure that, that means that I think that last summer was rock bottom. And that, for all Kool-Aids listening to this, is why I stand positive. And that's why I gave it this an A. That's why I gave it an A. I'll agree with you. 8.5, 9 out of 10 for me.
No, that totally makes sense. And I think what you just said about Ferran Torres in particular, of the sort of the four biggest names that the Barca have brought in, because the other three, I mean, you look at, Dani Alves is 38 years old, and I mean, just adores the club and wanted to be back here. So you didn't even really need to sell him on a project or a wage cut or anything like that. He just wanted to do this. Aubameyang has maybe one last good-sized contract left in his career, but right now his career is sputtering, and he needs to get it back on track. So he's motivated to go to a high-profile club and forego some money right now to try to hit the jackpot later. But nonetheless, he needs the sheen of Barca as much as Barca need his talents, I think. And Adama Traore, I mean, like we said, for all of his just astounding physical gifts, he's a guy who's ostensibly an attacker who struggles to score goals or assist on goals. And so, each of these, those three either want to, or to a certain extent need the Barca leg up as much as Barca needs them. But Ferran Torres is young, talented, accomplished, and was already at a huge club where he can essentially just hang around, even just be a squad player and, win medals on a fairly regular basis. Like, he didn't need to do this, and that he did. Sure, he wanted to come back to Spain, and sure, the sort of that siren call of Barca is strong to young Spanish players and things like that. But nonetheless, he did it. He rather than figure, I'll wait a couple of years, collect these massive paychecks and then show up. No, he did it now, and he simply didn't have to do it. And the fact that they were able to pull that off is, I think, it's telling of how they've been able to get this thing back on track, and at least get some sort of, kind of get their arms around what the extent of the troubles were and how they're going to go about fixing it, and what the path is out of this, the forest, or whatever we want to say.
Yeah. And a reminder too, the January transfer window is always difficult business. It's where, I mean, clubs clearly don't have leverage when you're going after players in January, and clubs have no reason to loan you their players or to sell you their players if you're not covering their salary. They're not trying to get out of a jam or a mess. And so for the case of Dembele, if we call that the one failure, if you will, of this transfer window, not having that be rectified in a way that supports the club or even helps the player, honestly, at this point, Dembele, This situation is one that plays out over and over again, though. James Rodriguez and Coutinho in the past, and Gareth Bale. Usually, it's difficult to move a player, especially in this kind of circumstance. So if anything, not to be a nihilist about it, but I'm not expecting this is where we got to. I felt like weeks ago this is where we're heading, and I'm not surprised that this is how this all played out with Dembele stuck in limbo at FC Barcelona. Just because, again, it's difficult to have this kind of move happen, and if you're able to at least bring in everybody else and register them, then it is what it is. And this is a situation that, once again, on the back of all the Bartomeu news coming out today, it's still the sins of the past. The club is still paying for those sins. And Dembele is not say the final move there, but the final piece of that, where now it's unfortunate because he's such a talented player. I was always optimistic about what he could be for Barcelona in a way that Griezmann weren't. But yeah, it's a sad end. And so the final question for you, Emile, as far as Dembele's future at the club, it seems like, I think he's just going to sit in the stands, right? Is Xavi going to be? It seems like the club doesn't want him to use him. I think that relationship, based on Laporta's comments today, is completely dead. So I don't think Xavi is going to really even have an option to use him. So is he in this?
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think that's the problem, because I get the sense that Xavi would like to use him. And I think particularly when Xavi looks at, all the players that he has at his disposal now, and even, kind of like I brought up that Aubameyang Dembele reunion. There has to be some part of Xavi's mind, where he's like, I wonder, what can we do with that? Like, does that thing still spark? And unfortunately, I feel like the calls are from on high that, I don't know, that Dembele just, he wasn't willing to go the extra mile to make to make everything happen. And so, he's thus, I guess, persona non grata. And so he's just going to get really good season tickets for the rest of the year. And and I guess he'll be on his way. It's unfortunate. There's a part of me, I would love it if there is a little bit of a twist in the plot where he can get back on the pitch and, hopefully help out and, maybe show a little something. But I'm not terribly optimistic. But if the worst thing that happens, given the, like you were talking about, but given the mire that the club was in anywhere, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 15 months ago, given where they were, if your biggest shortcoming, your biggest failure is having to pay another, 4 months of Ousmane Dembele's contract, that's not that bad. Your 21-22 season has been pretty stellar. If you don't have to pay Griezmann, you aren't, you're already not paying half of Coutinho's contract, and, you can kind of cross your fingers and hope that he lights it up at Villa and you even get money for him. And then, so if this is the worst thing that happens, it's hardly, it's hardly a monumental disaster.